I'm wondering, as you start breaking things down into smaller and smaller pieces, do you find yourself losing that connection to an entire piece when you're only looking for just a tiny little portion to use?
You know, I think it's always trying to find there's always something in a record that is part of that special quality. Maybe it's a hi-hat pattern, or it's a string line, or a certain loop of ideas, and I'm trying to find those parts in those records. You know, I love listening to, you know, classic records and playing them out, you know, but I always get that kind of like, you get that warm feeling, oh, I remember the Banco building and stuff like that, and then after the warm feeling goes away, maybe after 30 seconds or a minute, I'm like, well, that was then. Fuck that shit. You know, I don't, that was great then, but how can I play this record so I get that feeling, but updated now? Can I do it with that record, or do I just throw that record away and find a new record? Do I take, you know, the little clip it from Jack Your Body and loop the bass line differently so everyone hears it and they're like, is this Jack Your Body? Well, maybe it's not, but it gives them that kind of feeling of what Jack Your Body did the first time you heard it. So I don't think it's really hard to do. It doesn't work all the time, and there's probably records where maybe I won't be able to do that too, but that's kind of the challenge, you know, trying to, you know, we have probably similar records that we, you know, kind of take us back. And I'm much more interested in making a moment for people now, how we feel about 8 years ago or 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Making that moment that in a couple of years they're going to look back at. But hopefully they won't just look back and reminisce and get old like so many people. They'll look back, think about it, and say, well, I want to find another experience like that. I want to hear a new record like that, a new sound. And out of all the musics and genres I've ever heard, electronic music seems to, it's not always perfect, but it seems to have the most potential, because of its tie with technology, to always, you know, reevaluate itself and give you another experience.
Hi, I'm curious about how you feel about the increasing number of musicians who play, say, acoustic instruments or playing with other groups of musicians live, and not only incorporating electronics into the music that they're making, but actually incorporating the styles of music that strictly electronic artists have been performing up until this point.
I was never, there's some acoustic stuff I like. I was never a big fan of it, but anything, as long as at the heart of it, there's some type of progression, and I think that is apparent when you hear a piece. If that was kind of the intention, that there is this kind of forward-thinkingness to the way they either produced it or the way they integrated things, you know. And at the same time, there's a lot of other musicians trying to integrate electronics with other types of forms of music to just really kind of relive what's happened before. But as long as they have that kind of perspective, let's take these techno ideas that are kind of futuristic or whatever, and take these ideas and try and make something which hasn't existed before. That's, you know, that's I guess the common goal. And you see, you know, finally a lot of musicians from all different types of genres using technology now and filtering things, or sending guitars through this, or vocals and resampling vocals, and you're starting to hear really contemporary music, which is very strange. And I think that's, you know, a positive thing. So.
So something that I'm pretty interested in is the way that you create a sense of environment at your parties, and you kind of talked about that in terms of music. But I'm also interested in, you know, sort of the history of how you developed the way that you have the room set up, or the way that you know who you interact with in terms of doing that, and how that's developed over time, and how important that is to you.
It's a big one. It's very important. I think, you know, I guess what I've been talking about tonight really is about, you know, music, but again, marking a specific moment in time, creating something that makes an impression on someone. And I noticed very early on that, you know, to do something, to make an impression on someone, there's many other forces acting on them than just music. I remember that back to the time when, Derek was playing. Oh, it comes back to Derek today. At the Music Institute, and that was just like a dark room and a huge sound system. And I remember remembering the emphasis on the sound there, and because many other clubs were, the DJs were playing, but this sound was just like enveloping, and this dark room was enveloping. It was the same as at the Banco building when we did our first parties, Hard and Harder and all those things. Back then, we started just doing the black plastic to get rid of all external stimuli, so people could only focus on the music or focus within, and really kind of take a step away from themselves. And through doing that and kind of experimenting, it just became more apparent how important the environment was to the overall experience. So we've done lots of different experiments over the years, like at the Consume party in Pontiac. We had a quadraphonic system, which I'd love to do again, but it was a technical nightmare. But we're hoping to do it again. But that, further playing with space and dimensions of the room to really interact with the people in that space. Because I talk to other DJs and stuff, and everyone, I guess, is sometimes nearly too overwhelmed or too focused on the music. And wouldn't be here without the music. It is definitely the most important component. But we've always, myself and the guys at Minus, my crew, we've always taken into all the other consideration, the heat of the room, the intensity of the lights, how the absence of light or how that quick burst of white light is going to work together with that record I'm playing. How annoying and intense smoke can become when you could hardly, you can hardly see anything or hardly breathe, and what a rush it is when you come out of that, both musically and both emotionally, Nelly. So it's hard to go into all that, but it's definitely something which interests me just as much as the music I'm doing. And I think the last year or so, the parties we've been doing around here have been, those ideas have been there, but we're, I think, trying to take a step even further into that now. But there's so many different things you can do, so many new technologies for the environment. But I don't really want to do parties for $80 just to pull off the ideas I have right now. So we're trying to, Clark's working on it. Hopefully we'll pull it off. And I think the next thing we're looking at doing is trying to get back to some quad setups on the musical level, and then really delve back into the environments. Because there's a lot of artists, like kind of artist-based artists, not musicians, who are doing environments and things like that. But there's not so many people around the world that really take this view on the whole thing. We've had people come to our parties to play, or other DJs, and see, and they're like, well, you guys are crazy. But when you see all those things come together, it's not just about, the effects work, the sampler works, Final Scratch work, this works. But, this is interesting with live. As I start to go more on a computer-based things, when I have things like MIDI and all these things working in my favor, the idea of hooking that up to lighting rigs and all that starts to get really interesting. Because the thing we've been working on the last two parties, Jack and Control, and the whole idea with the Control idea is taking that to the next step further and giving one person in the room full control over the whole environment, which kind of I've had in the past, but not kind of beforehand, not during. And now I'm starting to get that during, and not just with fog machines, but just with like full lighting rigs and controls right next to me. So if I'm dropping a fader on audio, I can bring up a fader on the lights, or vice versa. So that's kind of what we're exploring. And that's where things get powerful. You've got to have, we don't just listen, we see, we smell, we feel. So see what happens.
In your last answer, but the question I have is that over some of the computer-based shows that I've seen, I kind of felt this disconnection with the artist. I kind of felt that even if the great music that I was